And generally, the world is a really interesting, exciting, constantly varied place that beckons children. And yet we've locked the door. And so we think now that we've locked the door, the only place they can be is on the phone. Well, if you unlock the door and you make it normal again for kids to go around the neighborhood or go to the park or go to the store, run an errand for you, be a little helpful instead of being this Pekingese that you have to take with you all the time. What you have to do is make it normal again for parents to feel okay about opening the door and letting their kids do some things.
Welcome to the ADHD Parenting Podcast with Mike McLeod of Grow Now ADHD and Ryan Wexelblatt of ADHD Dude. Learn about parenting kids with ADHD from a licensed clinical social worker and speech-language pathologist who specializes in ADHD. No fluffy parenting advice, only practical information that will equip you to help your child with ADHD effectively.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the ADHD Parenting Podcast. We are really excited that we have a very special guest today. We have Lenore Skenazy from the organization Let Grow, and we're going to let Lenore introduce herself and tell us a little bit about herself and Let Grow.
Oh, that's so rare that I get to introduce myself. First of all, thank you. Thanks for having me. So I'm Lenore, even pronounced Skenazy right. Thank you so much. Uh, if I'm known at all, any infamy that I have came from letting my 9-year-old ride the subway by himself back in 2008. He's 26 now, do the math. And I wrote a column why I let my 9-year-old ride the subway alone. And that was here in New York City, where we live. And 2 days later, I was on the Today Show, MSNBC, Fox News, and NPR, defending myself. So if you Google America's Worst Mom, there I am for having trusted my kid with some independence and letting him go in the subway. And the blowback was so intense when this story came out. I write columns twice a week. I've been doing it for like 25 years. So it was like surprising that one column was so intense in terms of public interest. So I started the blog Free Range Kids, and then I wrote a book called Free Range Kids. And I basically ran Free Range Kids, giving lectures about how we got so afraid for our kids for about 10 years. And then Jonathan Haidt, who recently wrote The Anxious Generation, and a man named Dan Schuckman, who was head of FIRE, which fights for free speech on campus, came to me and said, look, we're worried about kids on campus being fragile, unopen to new ideas and sort of mistaking whenever they felt uncomfortable with like an idea or a class or a text with actually being unsafe and needing a safe room or a trigger warning when these are not triggers or really literally unsafe. They're just unusual or surprising or, force kids to think. We don't want to be fighting this on campus forever. We'd rather raise a generation from now on of kids who are more resourceful and resilient. And John had read Free Range Kids, and he was raising his kids free range. And so together we founded Let Grow after bringing on one more expert. I'm not even sure I am an expert, but after bringing on a guy named Peter Gray, who is a professor at Boston College, you're nodding along, who wrote the book Free to Learn. He has spent his entire professional career studying the importance of kids just playing without anybody organizing them, no uniforms, no pictures at the end, no adults bringing the snacks, no adults. And people always wonder, am I anti everybody gets a trophy? And I'm anti people being there to give the trophies because I just don't want parents with their kids every second of the day as if they need this to be safe or stimulated. I think kids are more safe, smarter, stronger than our culture gives them credit for. Long-winded way, really long, oh my God, shut up already, of saying how we founded the organization Let Grow, which is trying to make it more normal to give kids back the kind of independence and free play that most of us grew up having.
Well, that was awesome. That was an introduction.
It's awful.
That was an introduction that really energized me and fired me up. I am such a fan of the Let Grow mission and everything that you guys are doing. And we were talking a little bit even before we started recording, and you came on and you stated you were so excited about this because you feel like you have so much to learn about ADHD and neurodiversity. And part of what makes Ryan and I so excited is this program of Let Go and Free Range Kids really is what Ryan and I are always preaching, is bringing back play, getting kids outside, parents fading back. This is really some of the most evidence-based and best thing for kids with ADHD and executive functioning challenges. So this is just a perfect combination of messaging and mission.
And Lenore, one of the things I think is really important to mention is that, every facet of free play, imaginative play involves the core executive function skills. So things like cognitive flexibility, being able to, compromise, being able to, figure out what the next step is going to be in things. So the way that executive function skills and social skills develop naturally is through free play. I mean, that's the bottom line for every child, ADHD or not. So there is nothing more important to executive function skill development than free play and independence.
Yeah, no, I was thinking, obviously, everything I'm talking about would resonate with you because it's all about parents stepping back. Because when parents are with kids, when any adult is with kids, when I am with my own kids who are now in their 20s, we will step in and organize them. We will tell them what to do. My kids are in their 20s, and when they're crossing the street and they're looking at their phone for a second, don't look at your phone. We're crossing the street. And it's like, I have a feeling that they're crossing the street maybe every day without me and probably doing it successfully because here they are to this day. And yet, when we're with a kid, we often feel like they're doing it suboptimally. And so we step in. And the way I've been describing sort of a childhood, the normal childhood these days, is that since we're always there, or we're often there, or sometimes we're electronically there, it's like we're in the driver's seat and the kids are in the passenger seat because we're better at things. If we're with them and they're playing, we'll say, no, give everyone a turn, or don't do it that way, or here, let me show you. And those are normal impulses. And so what happens is that they aren't developing those skills the normal way, which usually requires just being with your friends and arguing and wasting time and doing things that take a tiny bit of risk. And we will optimize them. If you think of what it means to play, when adults are organizing a game, say a baseball game, and believe me, I took my kids to enough little league games, right? There's an adult there who's deciding the teams, deciding who plays what base, what position. Was the ball, foul or fair? Should we give this, person another, chance to hit? I mean, and the order and who's bringing what snack and what snacks are allowed. And so it feels like we've optimized them because all the time is spent in this game. But if you had kids meeting up together, at the park or the sand lot. I'm not even sure I've ever seen a sand lot. It's just a phrase in my mind, but I guess guys have seen sand lots.
It's a good move.
And anyway, no, I mean like actual sand lot. Like, what is a sand lot? I live in New York City. I don't see any sand lots. There's lots with rats, and then there's condos. So there's no sand lots. But in any event, if kids are together, you hear them arguing all the time. It's like, no, I'm going to go first. No, you went first last time. Okay, you'll go first, but I'll take 2 turns. And who's going to play what? And oh my God, Ryan brought along his little brother, and we got to think of something for him to do. And he's just 3, and we don't want to squish him. But if we don't, we don't want to play with him at all. But if we don't, then Ryan has to go home, and he's got the only gloves. So all of the give and take, the back and forth that sort of wires the mind to know how to come up with an idea, articulate it, try to get by, and compromise if you don't. All of that richness looks like wasted time to the adults because there isn't any playing. But our beliefs, which we all, Jonathan Haidt and I and Dan Schuckman, we all learned from Peter Gray, is that what looks like the wasted time is actually the enrichment. And Mother Nature put the play drive. Peter doesn't say Mother Nature. He's an evolutionary psychologist. Darwin and evolution put the play drive into kids so that they would have so much practice at all of these social skills and all of the executive function. Like, well, if I don't, if I keep saying I'm going to go first, no one will play with me. So I'm going to have to wait my turn, as opposed to just top down. No, now it's your turn and now it's not, which is external as opposed to internal. So if you want to build this internal locus of control and the control that goes with an internal locus of control, we just have to stop being with our kids every second, because we will inevitably organize things for them and they will miss out on that opportunity.
That's beautiful. So 2 things. First of all, what you just described is executive functioning. This internal locus of control, that's executive functioning, period. So executive functioning is a fancy term for mental play. And Dr. Russell Barkley, the worldwide leader on ADHD, describes it so beautifully. All of that external, like all the presentations I do revolve around external to internal, kind of what you were describing. And all of that external play kids do becomes internal play. And executive functioning is mental play, planning, prioritizing, problem solving, and creativity. So it goes external to internal. So play never stops. Play, like executive functioning, is mental play. So that was the first point I wanted to make. The second was, thank you for being the first person to mention screens and phones. Ryan and I had a previous podcast episode all about screen addiction and
Did I
ADHD.
just mention screens and phones? I'm the person who doesn't talk about screens and phones.
Oh,
What did I
yeah.
say about screens and phones?
You said, get off your phone, get off your phone. You were talking about the kids being on the phone and being electronically connected to our kids.
Oh,
Yeah.
that does interest me, the idea of constantly tracking and assisting our kids from afar. I'm not the person who talks about social media. That's John.
Yep. And that's something that we obviously talk about because ADHD kids are highly susceptible to screen addiction. And we
As
had
is
a
every other kid in the world who has ever been born.
exactly. Well, ADHD kids especially. And we had a previous episode talking all about ADHD and screen addiction. And something I'm very passionate about, and I'm always talking about ad nauseum, is the danger of screens. But one of the biggest issues that I have with screens is basically they keep kids in the house. They
Yes.
keep kids in the house where the parents are. So that's the problem, is that's what we're seeing today. And Jonathan has that unbelievable chart in his book of social deprivation of kids being together less simply because they're at home on the screens where the parents are under the parents' microscope at all times.
Yeah. The word he's been using that I like, or the phrase, is experience blocker, right? If
Beautiful.
you're on your phone, you're not outside. And so the other phrase, because all we do is sit around and think of phrases, apparently, is take away the phone and then open the door. So a lot of people are talking about how to take away the phone. You guys figure that out. But if you take away the phone, the answer has been in so many blogs that I find very distressing. Is like, well, now that you've taken away the phone, why not organize a fun afternoon at the museum? And why not look up what exhibits you're going to check out and maybe make a checklist of everything that you want to learn? And maybe you'll reflect on it on the way back. And it's like, wait, so you're taking away the kid's phone, and every afternoon until they move out of the house, you have to come up with a planned activity that, once again, you are going to be with them. Like, you can't just take away the phone and let them be. You have to take away the phone, and then you have to be the phone. You have to be the entertainment and education system for your kid. That is a strange new phenom that assumes that anytime a kid is not being stimulated and educated and teachable momented to death, they are lying fallow or worse. And that sort of forgets that your own childhood, which anybody today who has a kid of, I'd say, age 5 and up, didn't grow up with a phone, right? So you know that there are things to do other than be on your phone all the time. And generally, the world is a really interesting, exciting, constantly varied place that beckons children. And yet we've locked the door. And so we think, now that we've locked the door, the only place they can be is on the phone. Well, if you unlock the door and you make it normal again for kids to, go around the neighborhood or go to the park or go to the store, run an errand for you, be a little helpful instead of being this, this Pekingese that you have to take with you all the time. So what you have to do is make it normal again for parents to feel okay about opening the door and letting their kids do some things. And uh, what we always say is that a collective problem, which is everybody having their kids inside and all kids being on phones, or all kids being in an adult-led activity, if they're in a sport or whatever. A collective problem where kids are constantly supervised requires a collective solution where we renormalize the idea of letting go of your kids or letting grow of your kids. And so Let Grow has 2 programs that I'm going to tout here. They're both free. All our materials are free, so I sound like a salesman. Actually, I sound like a saleswoman. But there's nothing to be sold, just an idea. So one is what we call the Let Grow experience. And that's where kids in schools, K through 8, and then we even have a program for high school students, Kids get the homework assignment that says, go home and do something new on your own with your parents' permission, but without your parents. And the reason that's like sort of groundbreaking and significant, even though it's a one sentence thing. I mean, for teachers, we have pages and pages of curricula. But really, it is just the idea that you, as the parent, are being told that for your kid's assignment, you have to let them do something on their own. And the reason is that parents just don't know when they are allowed to let go of their kids. And I would guess that ADHD parents probably triply so. But if you don't let go of them, you're depriving yourself and your kid of something very significant, which is the experience of letting go and realizing it's great. Because if you let your kid do something, they want to walk the dog, they want to go get a muffin. If you're in a really dangerous neighborhood, they want to bake, I don't know, they want to make pancakes for breakfast. Whatever it is, you stepping back is first of all so important because the kids are seeing, oh my God, you you think I can do this, right? You believe in me. That's already just rocket fuel for any child, realizing that people who know and love him the most or her the most are also people who trust them to go do something. That's just very bracing. And then they go and do it. Say they go to the store and they say, please get me a quart of milk. And they get a quart of milk and they came back and they got lost on the way back for a little bit. Or they forgot to get the change, or they got you 2% milk instead of whole milk. So something has gone a little wrong. And that's not the end of the world. So no matter whether things have been perfect or imperfect, seeing your kid come home having done something on their own rewires you, the parent. And if everybody's doing this, you don't feel crazy about letting them do it. You don't feel like you're a terrible person or you're going to be racked with guilt. It's a homework assignment, you know? So you've taken away the guilt. You've given them a little push. And then parents get this wonderful surge of joy that we have denied them as parents, which is saying, that's my Harry, look at what he did. Because I'd say the most exciting thing for any parent, I'll ask you this literally. When's a time that you felt extremely proud of your kid, or perhaps even most proud of your kid? You can tell me.
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Well, my daughter is 3.5 years old. And yeah, I would certainly say most proud is when she stopped having that separation anxiety about going to daycare. What we did was we joined a local gym in the area that had a daycare in it. So we started to bring her for short bits of time. And then once she went to school, once we signed her up for daycare, her ability to go there, make friends, walk right in without screaming and crying, and just be super social and start to enjoy it. That was such a beautiful thing to see, and it was such an emotional thing for me as a dad to watch her just to be able to not need us anymore.
Right. And by the way, she doesn't need you for that time.
Yeah,
She
exactly.
still needs you.
Correct. Good point. Good point.
Right.
My son is your son's age, and I would say for myself, it's probably, and I wanted to tell you a quick story about this. It was probably when he took the train for himself the first time when he was whatever 13. And it was only 2 stops. It was a 5-minute ride, but it was really that because it showed me that yeah, he can handle being out there on his own. And I wanted to tie that into something before the next question, which is I wanted to share with you when we actually lived in when my son did that, we lived in the same town where I grew up.
Oh.
And, when I was about same age, 13, my friends and I started taking the train, 2 stops over just like he did, you know. And then I think in 8th grade at some point, my friend and I decided just one day randomly, we said, you know what, we're going to take the train into downtown Philadelphia, okay, which was 4 stops, an 18-minute ride. And we decided not to tell our parents because we figured if we told our parents, they would have said no, okay. So we did it. And then everything was fine. We walked whatever 8 blocks to South Street, which I guess is the equivalent, if I gave you an analogy, is going from like 16th Street to St. Mark's. That's basically like the same thing. Okay.
Right.
So
Pretty easy.
did it. And then we got home and told our parents. And, they weren't thrilled that we did it without asking them. But they said, okay, well, here's the deal. From now on, you can go and you need to be on the train coming home, before it starts getting dark. And we respected that. And I think when I look back on that, the thing that I remember the most was how proud we felt of doing this independently, right? And we were doing something that could have been a little bit dangerous because Philadelphia was much more dangerous in the late 80s than it is now, and we were just so proud of ourselves for, pushing ourselves to that level of independence, just like just like my son was when he was 13. Um, and I think that it's probably easy for a lot of parents, to lose sight of that sometimes. That being said, what I want to ask you is, parents of kids with ADHD, they have a natural propensity, with the best of intentions to do a more intense form of helicoptering than parents of, typically developing kids. And Mike and I tend to find a lot of resistance to our encouraging, unstructured free play and building independence, despite the fact we know that this is what helps build the skills that kids with ADHD are lagging in, which we mentioned, executive functioning and social skills. So my question is, what would you say to parents whose children need to develop these skills even more than neurotypical kids, yet they're extra fearful of allowing their children these vital skill building opportunities?
Yeah. First of all, I loved your examples, guys, because both of those examples were obviously of a time when a child surprised you by being more competent and ready for things than you knew, or Ryan, than your parents knew. And that's true of all parents. I realize that ADHD parents might be even more worried, uh, but from what I've seen in 16 years on the same topic, everyone is insanely worried. Everyone is worried to a point that your parents would not recognize as normal when you were growing up. I talked to a woman who's starting a play club, which I'll describe later, at her house in suburban Billings, Montana, which is pretty darn quiet. And one of the parents of the kids have been playing under adult supervision for the first 3 times she did this, and the 4th time she said, "Well, how about I stay in the house now and you guys go home and we'll let them play outside for an hour in the suburbs of Billings." And one of the dads said, "Only in the backyard, because if anything terrible happened to my kid, I would have to kill myself." So that's a level of fear and self-recrimination that is would have been just unusual, if not unheard of, a generation ago and every generation before that. Going straight from a normal activity in a safe place to death of 2 generations after an hour of unsupervised time. So everybody is at that really high pinging point where I call it worst first thinking. You go to the worst case scenario first and proceed as if it's likely to happen. The only thing that I've seen that changes that, that gives parents this jolt of confidence and new hope, is literally the moment the kid comes back from doing something on their own, or they took the cookies out of the oven on their own, or they, got themselves to their bus stop on their own. And the thing that's terrible is that if you think about it in your head, you don't it it won't happen. I've seen this. I've lectured around America for 16 years talking about how, oh, it's so great to give some kids independence. And when they do, we all feel so good. And kids are wilting because of lack of it. And parents are going crazy because they're constantly concierging their kids. And the crime rate today is, back to what it was in the 70s. And it went up in the 90s, but it's been coming down since. Even with the blip of COVID, it's still coming back down again. Statistically, you'd have to leave your child outside for 750,000 years for them to be likely to be kidnapped. So blah, 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 blah. Yes, that's interesting. Yes, that's true. Can't do it. So that's why you need a push. And the push is to sort of put the cart before the horse. You are pushed to let them go. And by doing so, you have to let them go. And then they go. And then you get this dopamine rush when they come back and you go, I had no idea they could do that. Or, wow, that was nerve wracking, half hour for me, but now look. So the only thing that changes parents is their kids. And the only way that the kids can change their parents is if they're not with them, if they take the train 2 stops, if they, run off into the daycare without clutching and crying and screaming. So you really have to get yourself to let go before you're ready to let your kids go. And since that's really hard, and it's particularly hard if you're the only person doing it, or if you're particularly worried about your kid, although, as I say, everyone is very worried about their kids, is to do it collectively, which is why we recommend this let grow experience that schools do, or a church, or a library, or a rec center. Give give a bunch of kids, which means give a bunch of parents, the assignment to do something on their own. And then it just starts breaking up the ice. It's like, oh, I didn't know you could do that. Oh, she did that. Oh, maybe mine could go with yours to get, ice cream or a haircut or whatever. It just, we we've so clamped down on childhood and told parents that you're not a good parent if you're not, with your kid every single second, that the light is not penetrating the darkness. And the only way the light penetrates the darkness is by letting your kids go into the light and then having them come back, and then the light floods the whole family. And then it becomes so easy to do it the next time and the next time. And I hear this from parents. The first time I was so scared I couldn't eat. I stood by the window the whole time. The second time, I glanced out the window. And the third time, I'm like, "Oh, and while you're there, could you please get some butter?" Because that's what exposure therapy is. Exposure is exposing yourself to something that's very scary. And, I'm so scared of dogs. Well, here's a picture of a dog. Now there's a dog across the street. Now you're in the same room as a dog. Now you must pet the dog. And it's like, oh, he's licking me. Oh, really, the only action, the phrase is action breaks the cycle. Thinking about things, you're just going to end up at the same place you started. No, I can't do it. I'd kill myself if anything bad happened. Can't do it.
Yeah, and that was really so beautifully said. I think to a lot of the parents that we work with and a lot of our listeners here, when it comes to ADHD parenting, what you're talking about is overall big picture about allowing your child to go out and play. But for ADHD parents, the three things you tend to hear about the most are morning routine, getting them to school on time, homework, and then evening routine. And these parents just find themselves in this constant vicious cycle of over prompting, over prompting in the morning, saving them from having to be late, micromanaging their academic performance to make sure everything gets done. And instead, it ends up being a 4-hour fight over
Oh
5 minutes
my
of
God, I've
homework.
been there. Oh, I've been there. That's so horrible. Yeah. Yeah. Um, First of all, let's give a pass to a certain extent to all parents because that that's a crazy, awful routine that we're forced to do anyhow. I mean, the idea of like, split second timing of getting up and getting breakfast and getting ready for your day and their day and getting into the car on time or getting to the bus stop on time and then picking them up and making sure they get to Kumon and making sure they get to soccer and you better eat in the car because there's no time. And then we get home and the teacher wants me to sign the reading log and you have to sit there and read for 20 minutes and I don't like it and you don't like it and let's start reading already. It's so demanding. It is so relentless of the parent and the child that who knows how much is ADHD and how much is just a relentless demand for performance and supervision on, both parts to the point where, of course, it's going to drive you crazy. I mean, one of the things that Peter Gray, whose book Free to Learn is revelatory, talks about is that when he was a kid, and he's ancient at this point, but there were kids at school who were like flunking math. But when it was time, when it was time to watch, he's from Minnesota, watch the Twins play, it's like, oh, well, now his batting average went down to 2.89. How do you know that? Oh, because he had last time he had a home run. It's like they could do things that interested them. And it was very hard. People seemed even obstinate or stupid when asked to do things at school that just seemed so irrelevant and so boring. And really, the way any of us learn is when we're interested in something. You'll be Googling, like, oh my God, my computer is, screwing up again. And I can't get a word, the Dropbox is not allowing me to search for a word. I'll be watching YouTube videos because it's relevant to me. I want to learn something. But if you just said, I'm going to put you in a word seminar for the next month and you're going to have to go to these classes every day and learn stuff you don't care about, I would be as dumb as a stump. I'd be dulled out and I'd be jumping out of my skin. So part of it is just how how little light gets into a child's day if everything is so adult prescribed and so little connected to discovery or agency or just having fun. And we were talking about before, there's nothing unfun about, baseball or soccer practice, but it is not play. So let me just explain the other Let Grow thing that we recommend for schools, which is that we recommend a Let Grow Play Club. We relentlessly name things Let Grow. So a Let Grow Play Club is just keep the schools open before or after school for mixed age, no devices, loose parts. I'm really becoming convinced that loose parts are a big deal. Free play. And by loose parts, I don't mean you have to go out and buy, 1,000 soccer balls. Have people bring stuff from home, an old suitcase, a typewriter, a coat, right? Cardboard boxes. If you don't have an Amazon box in your entryway, you're lying. So, so have kids bring these, and they will come up with things to do. And I'll tell you. I'm trying to decide which story to tell you. I'll tell you a story about a kid who was a bad in school. Like he was always at the principal's office. And the school had started a Let Grow play club. I'm trying to remember where this was. Oh, it was in South Carolina. And at some point, the kid's teacher suggested to the mom, like, we have a play club where kids just gather together. There's an adult there, me, he said, who is supervising, but I don't organize any games. I don't solve any arguments. I'm just there like a lifeguard. And I think your kid might like it too. And then the mom said yes, she would send her son to the play club. And then the teacher, Kevin, started going like, "Oh my God, am I going to ruin play club because this miscreant is coming?" But he thought, I got to give it a try because he really believed in free play. And so the kid came to the after school play club, and some of the kids are like, they literally flinched because this guy was trouble. We'll call him trouble. And and at first, nobody would play with him, and he went around, and he looked glum, and he's kicking at the gravel, and then one kid started, I don't know, playing, whether it was baseball or, basketball or just chasing him or a big part of a big tag game, but then he became absorbed into the game, and when he came into school, this was a before school, play club. When he came into school, another one of the teachers who was there saw him smiling as he went in, and she started crying. She'd never seen that before. And after that, things got so much better. And, you know, uh, even I don't know if I should believe Kevin, but he said that there were no more calls to the principal's office after that because something had been activated in that kid. He was suddenly part of something. He had something to look forward to. And he had some control over his own life for that time because he could decide what to do and do things with other kids and make things happen and be a human instead of an app that we're trying to program from afar or from a near. And so, I don't know if he had ADHD. I don't know if he had any quote unquote problem. But I did hear once from a teacher in Long Island who had assigned the Let Grow experience. She did this 20 times. So there's the play club where kids play like it's 1952. There's nobody organizing the games. And there's the Let Grow experience where they get the homework assignment, do something new on your own without your parents. And she told me that the people who were most excited about the Let Grow experience, the independence, um, were the one-on-one aids to kids with special needs. I was like, okay, why? And she said, because if they sort of had a different viewpoint of the kids because they hadn't known them since age 0. So they could see them a little differently than the parents could. And the parents had been doing so much for the kids because the kids had problems that they were unable to see like, oh, now she's 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. She's, she hasn't been cured or whatever it is, but she's more competent than maybe the parents even themselves see because they're so used to doing everything for their child. And the aides could see it, and they were frustrated because the parents wouldn't step back. And now the parents were required to step back for this. And one of the aides told me about a kid who he had to be rewarded all the time with a Jolly Rancher for doing anything. But for his Let Grow experience, he think he unloaded the dishwasher or something, or he set the table. And then he started doing more in terms of kitchen prep and kitchen cleanup. And the parents were thrilled because he was helping out and he felt better about himself. He wasn't just the problem. He wasn't just the disability. He was these abilities now. And so there's something that is very fulfilling about feeling like you are not just a taker, you're a giver, you're competent, you can figure some things out on your own, and the people around you believe in you. They don't just love you, they believe in you. And you don't know that they believe in you until they step back and say, you can do it. And it's hard to step back and say, you can do it until you get a little push.
Lenore, one of the things I frequently talk about in my videos, I call it high giving, low expectations, because a very common dynamic we see in families with kids with ADHD is that, they give everything to the kids and expect nothing of them in return, even helping around the house with the smallest of chores. And what, we've both seen consistently for years is that this leads to an immature behavior at home that is not exhibited elsewhere. And as soon as parents change that dynamic and they start helping them feel useful at home and giving them a sense of purpose, their behavior improves, right? Because they feel useful, to your point.
Everyone does. I mean, I remember when I finally got a job and I didn't just have to take my parents' money. It's like I bought myself a pair of red shoes. I mean, you just feel like you're part of the world. And trust is like the most important thing in any relationship. And being trusted to be a human, a fully human, competent person is great. But I empathize with the parents because I did a lot for my kids. I think I still do a lot for my kids. And it is hard to let go, which is why having an external source say you have to do this is really helpful. And having a bunch of people doing it at the same time is also helpful. You're all going through this. You're all a little nervous. You share your stories. And one of the things that I learned there's a psychology professor at Long Island University, Camilo Ortiz. I'd recommend him.
Yep, he was on our podcast. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So he studied and he realized that like actually independence works on anxiety. I mean, it's a real therapy for anxiety. So it's anxiety in both our generation. It's the parent is anxious and then the kid is anxious because the kid doesn't know what they can do until they have to do it. So it's just renormalizing a bit of the independence that kids have always grown up with until this recent very intensive culture that I don't blame on the parents because, as we discussed already, the school day is long, and after school you're always supposed to be putting your kids in some kind of enrichment activity because we don't believe that kids are ever enriched on their own or with other kids. And so you have to break that cycle somehow, and that's what these are trying to do. Give, like you're setting aside as an enrichment activity time for kids to play before or after school, just with each other and figure things out. And actually, when we have the play club, when schools do a Let Grow play club, they send home a piece of paper for the kids to sign that says, "I will not deliberately physically hurt anybody, and I will not leave without telling anyone." And then the parents have to sign one that says, "I realize my child will not be happy every single second of play club."
Wow.
Because we've also gotten used to the idea that not only does everybody get a trophy, quote unquote, but that uh, they were hurt or they were picked last or they weren't on a team or nobody wanted to play with them. That these are problems that an adult should solve. But these are problems that, for the most part, not every time, kids can solve, especially when they're motivated to have fun.
Absolutely, yeah, what we're describing here is sometimes kids just need that push. That we talk a lot about the ADHD small and narrow comfort zone, and what a lot of these ADHD kids need is that parent to push them out of the comfort zone into discomfort. Because what we see a lot from ADHD parenting is just constantly respecting sort of that no. So like, oh, I asked my son if he wants to play outside. He said no. I asked my son to join this club. He said no. I asked him to do executive functioning coaching. He said no. So
Oh
always just constantly respecting the no.
my God, who wants to go to executive functioning
Of
coach?
course.
So the thing that probably talked about that's so, I'd say, different about Let Grow versus pushing the kid. You're going to go have fun now. You're going to go be independent now. It's like, it's, first of all, it's external to the parent. So it's not even the parent saying that. I mean, there's so many weird dynamics between parents and child that if you say you must go have fun, it's like, no. I mean, it's a strange thing to demand of a child. You go be independent, have fun, and grow up already. But if the teacher, they say, look, your homework is you got to go do something on your own. Is there something you want to do? And then that's the other key. It's like, is there something you want to do? When Camillo did his, I'd say, landmark study of independence as therapy for anxiety, normally in cognitive behavioral therapy, the kid comes in, the parents bring the kid in because he's afraid to go upstairs and downstairs in his own home by himself. And so it's like, well, kid, I hear, here you are 10 and you're afraid to go upstairs by yourself tonight. Why don't you go upstairs for 5 minutes? So it's exposure to the very thing that makes the kid uncomfortable that the parent doesn't even like pushing the kid to do because that's how it's gotten to this point. So rather than focusing on the thing they don't want to do and the thing that they're bad at and embarrassed about, you have no executive functioning. What's your problem? flip it back to normal life. It's like, well, you got to go do something on your own. What do you want to do? What would be fun? I'm reading the assignment. You got to do something. I don't know what you want to do. It's like, well, oh, you want to go get ice cream? Okay. You want to go with your friend to the park? That's okay. So instead of focusing on the deficit, you focus on independence and the fact that it's an external force that is having you let go. And it helps the parent too. I mean, the parent is so anxious, and I don't blame the parents for being anxious, but this is the culture that we're raising parents in. You are a bad parent unless you're nattering at your kid every second. And I remember we hired somebody to sit with our son, one of our sons, to do his homework. It was so horrible. So I understand there are crazy demands that schools are making, especially on really young kids. Like, you must learn your letters. You must be literate by age 4.5. Finland starts teaching kids at 7, and they have the highest literacy rate in the world. So we have a very demanding, unforgiving, puritanical, expensive in terms of time, money, and mental sanity system out there for how to raise kids. So we are just trying to, chisel out space before and after school for play and independence to bring those back into kids' lives because, I don't know what cures ADHD, if anything cures ADHD, but it does give both parent and child a break.
Absolutely, yeah, beautifully said. And obviously, it needs to be said to the parents is, when if you go to a child and say, "So, what do you want to do?" If screens are an option, they're going to pick screens 100% of the time.
So kind of
So
screen-free thing.
yeah, exactly. That screen-free option. And I love earlier how you mentioned how these ADHD kids can hyper focus on these unique interests. And this is what gets me so passionate about ADHD kids and working directly with them is just like all children, all human beings, everybody has their own unique set of gifts. Everybody can do something that nobody else can. Everybody else has these passions. But what you find with ADHD kids is sometimes these talents and these interests just lie dormant within them and they never see the sunlight. And that's because they're not playing, because they learn their interests. They learn their hyper focus when they are away from their parents, when they're outside doing unstructured things. And it's a shame you never hear about it because when kids go outside to play in the woods or in the park, no one makes money off of it. But overall, that's what it is that's why free play is so important because that's where kids discover their talents.
Talents, and also something that's interesting enough, as I think you were saying, to keep their attention. I mean, how do you build attention? You don't build attention by sitting in a boring class about algebra. I mean, that's the way to build no attention. Didn't work for me, right?
Especially when you have a Chromebook in front of you.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, that's nuts too. But if you're really interested in, like, wait, where's the ant going? Right? I mean, there are always, I've seen it with my own kids. There's just something that they fall into. The chances that their true interest is something that a school is teaching or that an after school program is promoting is unlikely. I mean, because there's so many things in the world. I don't know, I talked to so many people. Some mom was telling me that why she believed in free play. She was at a park, and the park had some, like, wooden slats, and through the slats were growing up little pieces of grass. And she said, "This is why we can't say, like, let's all play cows now, or let's all play baseball now." The kids ran off, and they came back later, and they said, "That was so fun." What were they doing? They were pretending that the little pieces of grass growing up through the slats were hair, and they were lice sucking blood from, it's like, "Oh, honey, I'm taking you to lice pretend play this afternoon." Oh, again with the lice pretend play. I mean, kids will come up with things that interest them. They're incorporating, obviously, somebody in that school must have had lice at some point. We've all been there, right? And then they turned it into something unique to them and fascinating enough that they were playing it for a while. And I'm sure they got tired of it and did something else. But it's hubris to think that the kids are only interested in, ballet or soccer or Kumon. There's everything else in the world. And you won't find it out, and they won't find it out if all their time is spent in the adult run activities that we've decided all kids love.
Right. Lenore, if somebody wants to introduce Let Grow to their school or their community, how do you suggest that they go about introducing this? Because, obviously this is going to be, crazy to a lot of people who are not familiar with, with this idea.
Well, what's nice is that the number one book in the world right now, The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt, is, as we discussed, a co-founder of Let Grow. And there's two chapters that were sort of co-written about what schools and parents can do to bring more independence and free play back into their kids' world. And in the book, John has four new norms, and one of them, three is like three are phones bad, phones bad, phones bad. And then number four is more independence, responsibility, and free play in the real world. So, first of all, we have a nice spokesman out there, Jesus on the Mount, saying kids need more independence, free play, and responsibility. But I would not say it's I wouldn't say just go by yourself to the principal's office and say, "Hey, I was reading The Anxious Generation. Look at page 268." Actually, I should look up what page it actually is on. It's not 268. Um, and it says that we should do a Let Grow Play Club and we should do the Let Grow experience. But if you are part of a group of moms or dads, haha, who wants to present something, respectfully to the principal or to your superintendent, I would say, first of all, you go to letgrow.org. We have a whole section that says for schools, and you can read about, the studies and why it's important. And you can read The Anxious Generation. And then you can go as a little group of non-confrontational, empathetic, three moms requesting a meeting with the principal and say, look at, these are two ideas that are free, that our school might consider trying. It seems like they're working really well. 1,000 schools have started doing our programs this year. 1 million kids are doing them. So it's not like this untested weird thing. And did we mention it's free? And the Let Grow experience takes a little class time. You have to hand out the sheets of paper, right? But most of it is done at home, right? It's a homework assignment. And then the kids come back and you can make it into a big project. You have to write an essay or a poem on what you did on your own, or you could just fill out this little leaf. I went to the store. How was it? It was good. I mean, we have so many of these poignant leaves and little essays written by kids on what they did. And then we went to one school in Vegas, a public school, really diverse kids, some in foster care and whatever, and some with learning disabilities. And we read all the little essays or whatever you want to call them, reflections that the kids had taped up to the wall. And they were so proud. And there was one kid, and I can't remember what his diagnosis was, but he never spoke in class. And he got up in front of class because he was really excited to talk about how he'd made food, like literally cooked food for his dog. I mean, because suddenly you've taken something extrinsic. Nobody cares about algebra and phonics. And intrinsic. I love my dog and I did something for him and look what I made. And there was one essay on the wall from a kid who had a learning disability, and I'd say every single word was misspelled. It's like, I went to the STORRR, to get food. I took a picture, PIKSHUR, of the food, and it was hard, and it was scary to talk to the checkout lady, but I got the food for our family. I love my Let Grow experience. I'm sure experience was not spelled right. So it's just, it's sort of like we've raised kids on like, here are your nutrients for breakfast. Well, okay, here's your nutrient for lunch. Well, or here's your nutrient for dinner. And then you say like, actually today you can go to the store and buy some food and cook it and then you get to eat it. And it's like, it's so fantastic because you've given them back something that we are hardwired to desperately want: the free play, the independence, the trust, and the responsibility that we've sucked out of kids' lives. And when they get it back, it's like this parched flower gets to blossom. And it sounds too simple and too perfect, but I keep watching it and it's free and there's no downside. So why wouldn't everybody try it?
Lenore, this has been such an incredible conversation. We cannot thank you enough for joining us. This has really been such a valuable asset to our ADHD parents and listeners. So they can find you at letgrow.org. Where else can our listeners find you?
Oh, we have a Twitter feed, Let Grow. Somebody else does our Instagram. It's Let Grow org. It's all Let Grow. And then the book I wrote is Free Range Kids, and people like it just because it's fun and it sort of gives you it gives you the fuel that is anger. Like we don't have to be this afraid, and we don't have to be this micromanaging. And it's been foisted upon us. I sound like, some nutty person at the moment, but it's not a conspiracy. It's just that this culture has sort of grown up to the point where we don't trust ourselves, we don't trust our kids, and we don't trust the world. And when you take a step back, you realize, oh, we can trust them all.
Beautifully said.
Yeah. And we will put a link to your book and to Let Grow in the show notes as well, so everybody can get there easily. So thank you so much for your time. This was great. We really appreciate it.
Oh, this was fun for me too. And I would love to hear from you or your listeners if anybody does any of the Let Grow, the experience or the play club, because I need those anecdotes, as you can see, to fuel me. So I'm Lenore at letgrow.org. You can reach me directly or just find our site and you'll always be able to press info.
Hey, thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Here. Bye.
Thanks for listening. To learn more about Mike's practice, Grow Now ADHD, please visit his website, grownowadhd.com. To learn about the services Ryan provides, please visit ADHDdude.com. You can find Mike on Instagram at GrowNowADHD and Ryan on the ADHD Dude YouTube channel. We'd love to hear your feedback or questions, so feel free to contact us at the ADHD Parenting Podcast at gmail.com. The ADHD Parenting Podcast and content posted by Grow Now ADHD or ADHD Dude are presented solely for general information and educational purposes. Our goal is to provide valuable insights and knowledge, not to replace professional services. Mike and Ryan cannot provide clinical consultation or free advice through social media or other forms of communication. The information on this podcast is not a substitute for professional advice. If you or your child have any medical or mental health concerns, please consult your healthcare professionals.